Hey, deserving listeners, 90-Day Fiancé. Let's see what happens.
Why do you need people like that in your life? I'm not comfortable with this girl because they want to. And they're gone. They're gone.
Wait, so now they're together? I thought she was going to her friend's house. They're having a conversation. Let's rewind this.
Why do you need people like that
Why do you need people like that in your life? All right.
in your life? I'm not comfortable with this girl because they want to.
I'm not comfortable with these girls because they want to be with you. Okay, so I don't know, but it sounds like they're still having an argument and he doesn't want her to have friends that are women because, or friends that are lesbians because he has that paranoia. I mean, we've certainly heard no reasonable reason as to why he would think something's happening, right?
And they're gone. They're gone.
And then she says, Ed, they're gone, meaning I've done what you told me to do. I have isolated myself. Ugh.
I don't want to decide our future based on last night, but we have a lot of issues on both ends, whether you admit it or not.
Oh, I know I have issues. I know I have insecurities from our past breakups and everything like that.
Yeah, so it sounds like they made up. Did they make up? So as a citizen, that's really disheartening. As a therapist, it's like, yeah, I think I've said this before, but as a therapist, I've worked with couples that had bigger conflicts than this. So as a therapist, I'm like, well, yeah. So, well, maybe I should tell you that for especially you novice therapists, I know some of you are novice therapists or even experienced therapists, I suppose. We could talk a little shop here. Or if you're thinking about becoming a therapist. Actually, someone told me today that I inspired them or helped them to finally take the plunge and become a therapist, and now they're a therapist. And actually, you know, some people have told me that. And I just find that to just be, I don't know, it's such a wonderful thing. It's just like, wow, what a wonderful thing, you know. Anyway, so because along those lines, when I am helping trainees and supervisees and students, I am thinking about all the people that they're going to help. Of course, I don't have much to do with that. They're the ones that are actually doing the helping. But to be helpful to those people who are helping those other people, I find to just be like, oh, I mean, chills go up my spine just thinking about how happy that makes me, how much meaning in my life that provides to me, how much purpose that provides to me, that I could die right now and be like, well, you know, at least I was a part of that thing. Anyway, so one of the things that all couple therapists will run into, among many emotional, you know, mountains that you have to climb, is that there's a point where you will have a very difficult couple, a couple that will have a really hard time changing quickly and might seem to be sliding backwards. And they might kind of comply or listen in therapy and try to work in therapy, but they very quickly will have huge blow-ups in between sessions. Sometimes they'll have a blow-up as they're leaving your office, or they'll have a blow-up on the way to your office. I've had couples in this category where I can hear them screaming at each other as they're coming up to my door. And I've always had a home office, so it's like, there's my neighbors, you know, and I'll tell them, I'll say, look, if we were in a commercial building, I suppose it wouldn't be that bad. It still wouldn't be okay. But, you know, I live in a neighborhood. There's regular people in this neighborhood. So you can't be screaming. You can do it in your car. You can do it in here. Don't do it on the walkway up. So it'll be very disheartening as a therapist. You'll just feel like, oh, what are we doing? I'm failing. And then that's hard to deal with. And so you think, okay, maybe I need to take this training, or maybe I need to read this book or something. I mean, it reminds me of the very first couple I ever saw, and it was one of the very first clients I'd ever seen. I was so nervous about working with the couple that I was flipping. This is when I was an intern. I was flipping through my book, my manual of couple therapy, just looking for an answer, but I was so nervous I couldn't really read 2 words without freaking out. And so I just remember just flipping through it. And then time for the session came and I walked in the office and I was probably a terrible therapist. They never came back after the first session, which, I don't blame them because I was so scared. Eventually I got better. After a few months, I calmed down and was able to think straight and start developing the skills for a therapist. If you don't know, there's a lot of education before you're an intern, but that's just book learning. There's a whole nother set of learning that begins when you actually start working with clients, and there's really no way around it. You just have to kind of subject yourself, your lack of experience, to your first clients and just hope that you don't screw things up too bad. And the things I always tell interns in that situation is like, listen well. You can listen. So it's hard to screw up listening, right? It's usually, and that's really what I wish someone would have told me that. It should be like, Kirk, put the book down. Kirk, just listen to them and reflect back what you're hearing empathically. Really try to get to know the situation. That's all you're good for in a first session anyway. You're not going to fix anything usually. So anyway, I would say that with a couple like this, it would take a long time and they might not stick it out, but I've worked with a lot more frustrating. So the emotional mountain that you have to overcome is learning that it takes time. There's a lot of different parts of this mountain. One is to really internalize, because it's one thing to know, because a lot of novice therapists will know that it takes time. It's like, yeah, of course it takes time. But to really get it into your bones, you have to really change your paradigm and really internalize it and really go through it and really overcome all the barriers that will get in the way of that, right? Like ideas of judgment towards the client or judgment of the self as a therapist. It's like, well, but I feel like I know things take time, but I feel like I'm not getting anywhere with them, and it's because I don't know what I'm doing. And it's just like, no, it's not a reflection of you. In all likelihood, when I'm supervising, I usually know it's not anything to do with them. It's just a product of the couple. This is a couple. You've had easy couples up in this point, and this one, it's not. Sometimes I will be kind of worried about some therapists that I train who have all easy couples, relatively easy couples for the first span of time. Maybe even I've had supervisees who didn't have a tough couple for like 3 or 4 years into their career, which is really weird, I have to say. I mean, because on average, I would say about a third of couples are pretty difficult, pretty rough, worse than Ed and Liz in a lot of ways, or at least in that category of high conflict, a lot of distortions, a lot of past traumas. Anyway, so that's part of the mountain, is to realize that things take time and to really internalize it. Another is that to trust the process as a therapist, to know the model and to trust that and I sometimes have to remind myself, I don't really have to do this so much anymore, but I'm 25 years in, but 20 years in, 15 years into my career, I still hadn't really internalized that trust the model, trust the process. It takes time, because there are moments with a difficult couple, where for 5 years you won't see any improvement, or it'll be getting worse. And you're just thinking like, well, clearly something's going wrong here. Something's going, but there's so many things that you're working on. And if they're in individual therapy, there's a lot of things they're working on as well. So there's just so many things that need to be dealt with and slowly healed, such that you might begin to see improvements. Anyway, so that's what I'll say about that.
So after our big blowout at the engagement party, I'm really upset. I mean, she throws, the ring, which is a symbol, and, she throws it in the bush. I mean, that really hurt me more than anything she said. Okay, and do you know what you did? Because you were accusatory of something that didn't make any sense. She's not a lesbian, and she didn't have a relationship with that person. She just got out of a really difficult situation of an altercation of some sort with this person, and the first thing you say is, did you have a relationship with that person? And you got into that mode of ridicule and belittling and abusive language. So do you recognize that? And then she's gone. She leaves. She later returned with the ring and went to bed. No words. Okay, so she didn't go to her friend's house. She just met up with her friend, and then she went home. So, I don't know. It's now the morning, and I want to talk about what happened. We're both sober, but she is as angry, if not more, right now as she was last night. Okay, so
use that as a barometer for self-reflection. Maybe I did something wrong.
When we first got together, you told me that you would be with a woman if it wasn't for me.
You broke my heart so bad that I didn't want to have another breakup.
Okay,
so I was like, maybe I'll just date women.
So then,
Yeah, they've already been over this. And I suspected that that was a good possibility anyway, before she even said that. The way that he talked about it, it sounded like that she was just saying a phrase. It's something that people say. It's just like, maybe I should just be with women. She's not gay. She doesn't want to be with women. It's just an expression of just like, I've tried and everything it's just something people say. She's already said that. It was probably clear in the moment, but he's still fixated on that. And who cares? What does it matter, Ed, that she said that he's still fixated on that? Okay, let's say that was true, which it's not, and it wouldn't matter anyway, but let's say it was true that she says, if we ever break up, I'm going to be with a woman. So what? That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that she's gay now or ever. It doesn't mean that she had a relationship with that person. And even if she did have a relationship with that person, it was while you were broken up. So what are we talking about? And he's just continuing. So again, to remind myself and y'all of my working hypothesis here is that he has tremendous abandonment and betrayal traumas. He is, at least in this moment, mostly, if not completely, unaware of his reactivity to that. The only thing he registers is the conscious attack voice that he gets into, and accusation and rigidity. But what's happening underneath is terror that she's going to leave, and he is looking for some possible explanation as to why he feels all the feelings, and so he latches on to these particular, very minute details in what she has said as a way of desperately trying to get her to admit that she actually is. That's probably what it is, right? Because that's often what that kind of defense is geared towards. It's like, I know that you're cheating on me. I know that you did something. I know you're doing something to me. So you might as well just admit it. And if you're ever the recipient of that, it can be really crazy making. It can really just be like, what is happening? Especially if you're Liz and you are still in love and attached. And also, I don't know if she knows how to sift through those kinds of conversations, because really the only way to deal with this is just like, look, so let's go to couple therapy, 1. And 2, we've already been over this. And so I recommend everyone do this. Is like, if you can, and you're in a loop like this, is just to establish a phrase and just say it over and over again. In all likelihood, the Eds of the world will get very frustrated with it. But why would you reinvent the wheel every single time this question is asked? And for her, if I were in her shoes, I'd be like, I'm not gay. I just said that as an expression. I didn't have a relationship with that woman. And even if I did, we were broken up at the time. He said, I didn't have a relationship with her. I'm not gay. Even if I did, it wouldn't matter because we were broken up at the time. I only said that expression because I was frustrated. Okay. Once again, I'm not gay. So I don't know.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Unfortunately, life doesn't come with a user manual. Navigating all the various challenges we face can make you feel unsure or stuck in place. Whether it's a relationship, or going through grief, or considering a new career. And, generally speaking, a therapist can really help with that. By helping you to explore your feelings, and by giving you the space to clarify what you want to do. In my life, I can't imagine where I'd be without the therapy I've had. During some of the biggest moments of my life, therapists have been there for me. To slow me down, to listen to me, to help me explore. Well, that's where BetterHelp comes in. As the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists available 100% online. Plus, it's affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. It couldn't be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Kirk. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
that's in my head.
Never dated a woman.
Right.
I told you no,
Right.
and
But
you didn't believe me.
So Liz, you say that, and then fast forward to last night, here's this, one of your gay girlfriends is bracing you. Where do you think my head went?
There's nothing wrong.
Yeah, it's well-trodden ground. He just keeps saying it over and over again. So I think at this point, what he's looking for is for her to say, I'm sorry that I'm sorry I did that to you, but she didn't do anything to him. I think he's looking for, I think he believes that he's entitled for her to apologize and to have compassion towards him when he has been very belittling, and I'm just going to say it, verbally abusive, because he was berating her. He was, you're drunk and you're immature, and I don't know the exact words, but calling her names and just being unrelenting. So yeah, I think that's the bid right there. So if we're continuing to talk shop here, what I would do with that is I would ask Liz not to respond, and I'd say, Ed, tell me this, are you asking, and I would present it. Is that what what are you looking for exactly? And, there might be some dancing around, but if that were true, then he eventually would get there and say, like, yeah, I guess I'm looking that she cares, that she can say that what she did to me last night was wrong. And okay, well, what do you mean wrong? And she would try to get to what was it was hurtful or something. Okay. So you want Liz to apologize to you for hurting you. And how did she hurt you? And we kind of break that down. And we might be able to she might be like, okay, well, I'll apologize. I didn't know that it would hurt him, but yeah, but what I'd hope to get to is, depending on his level of insight, is for him to raise a question mark as to how he's seeing the world. Because personality disorders are almost always a function of misperceiving what's happening, either internally or externally. You're not seeing things the way most people would see things. And so when we see what we see in their situation, when we weren't there, obviously, but we have a good description, or a good enough description, I think, we just see what we see. We see, I don't have to go over that, but we see what Liz has been saying over and over again. But if you have a lot of relational traumas and thus a personality disorder, I don't know if Ed does, but you will see the same data, the same event, but what you will see is betrayal, 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 harm, harm, harm. I am being harmed. I'm being betrayed. I'm being abandoned. She's cheating on me. She's leaving me. She's treating me like crap. Everyone always does this. This is happening. I'm angry now. I'm going to confront her because I deserve to. I'm righteous. She deserves this. And so it all begins with that misperception. And that's an emotional misperception. It's not just like you're misseeing something, like an optical illusion. You're convinced of it because of the way it feels, because of the things that it triggers in you.
With being a lesbian, the reason that we got in a fight was because this toxic person that I told you to get rid of, that she's bad for you, was invited to our engagement party. When I cut out every single one of my friends to be with you, including my mom and my daughter.
Don't put that on me.
Well,
do not put that on me.
Okay, so that's a wrinkle. He's never said that in all of these conversations. I don't know why that wouldn't have come up, but she didn't refute it. He is saying that he saw her as toxic and didn't want her to be invited. So if it's true that he said, Liz, please do not invite this person, and she said, okay, I will not, and then she did anyway, then yeah, that's a problem. But it's not what they were fighting about. What they were fighting about was him berating her because he was convinced that she was a lesbian and that she had sex with her, had a relationship with her. They were at no point did he say during that argument, at least in terms of the edit for us, did he say, well, I'm only upset because you invited someone that I didn't want you to bring. But at that point, even if that's true, like let's just say that that's the true narrative, if you're Ed, you're like, oh, there's that woman, that toxic woman that I told her not to invite. Well, that's disappointing. Oh my God, she's attacking Liz. I think they had to call the police or the security to escort her out. And you would think that would supersede or you would say, well, I'll table my complaint that she invited the friend for later, but first, my fiance has been attacked by the toxic friend that I told her not to bring, but first things first, let's attend to her. Instead, he goes up to her and said, did you have a relationship with her? You were there.
I haven't done anything to betray your trust. Get over it.
Liz, since day one, I've had an issue with the people that are in your life. I don't want a girlfriend, let alone a fiance, let alone.
Okay, so we want to analyze communication so that we can be differentiated from it. The more we do this for ourselves, we might be able to do it when we're in situations like this. So Ed has a style where he doesn't really respond to what she is saying. When she wins the argument, he will come out a different way. It's actually a sales technique. It's a very common, this might help you as well if you're ever being assaulted by a salesperson in this way. Let's just say it's a car salesman. You walk into a car dealership and you're looking at the cars, and this dealer starts showing you, different cars. And you're like, well, I'm really looking for an SUV. And as the car salesman, that you don't have any SUVs for sale. But you want the sale. And so you say to the person, well, have you considered other kinds of cars? And they're like, well, what do you mean? So you show some hatchbacks and some, small, I don't know what you call them, those little, they look like shoes to me. They're like little shoes. They're like small SUVs. Anyway, and wagons. Anyway, so mini SUVs, that's probably it. And you show them, and they're like, well, I was really looking for like a bigger car. I was really looking, because I need a 7-seater or that kind of thing. And you're like, well, so the individual has directly answered the question. The customer has said, I want an SUV. If you as a salesperson directly answer, so let's say eventually the customer says, do you have any SUVs? So as the salesperson, if you answer that question directly, the customer is going to walk out. You can't have that. So you have to say something else. And so they say, eventually the customer says, well, wait, do you have any SUVs? Salesperson says, well, what? I'm not a good salesperson. Nothing comes to mind. I've had sales jobs. I was a shoe salesman at a Foot Locker, and I was not good. In fact, it was one of those things. I was told by the manager that if someone came in and said, I want that shoe, at the time it was 1993, and this Charles Barkley Reebok shoe was all the rage. It was like the next Air Nike, and it never took off. For this summer, it was the crap, the shit, the crap. Anyway, and it was expensive too. And I remember, we were kind of on commission, and I was just like, oh, okay. Anyway, so a lot of people were coming in to buy that thing, and so we were always, and we had a very small storeroom, and so I would measure their feet, and okay, size 10. Going to the back, no, size 10. Now, I thought I would walk back out and say, sorry, we don't have it in your size. You're going to have to look somewhere else. My manager said, never ever do that, and would scream at me. And so what they would say is, you bring out the next sizes around that, the 9.5 and the 10.5. You also bring out a size 10 in like 2 or 3 other shoes. So and every time it would happen. So I'd come, with all these boxes, and we'd start trying. He's like, wait, are any of these size 10 of the shoe I want to be like, well, no, but we have size 10.5. I also have these other shoes in size 10. And in my head, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Who falls for this stuff? Oh, well, I wanted that shoe in size 10, but since you brought out just a random other shoe that's kind of like it, then okay, I'll buy that random shoe that you chose for me. Like, no. But they made us do it, and I guess I guess a small chance is better than no chance when you're a sales manager. Anyway, but I would think that alienating the customers and having them never want to come back would be a problem, which was another criticism I'd say to car salesmen. There's just total side note, tangent day. There's a car dealership, a Honda dealership. I'll just call it out, in Linwood, Washington, just north of Seattle. And I've been going there I've been buying Hondas my whole life. And there's actually a Kirkland Honda. If you know Kirkland jeans or Kirkland brand, it's because Costco is from Kirkland area. And so there's a Kirkland, but that existed after I existed. So they were named after me anyway. And I get calls sometimes. Is this Kirkland on it? No. Anyway, so the Linwood Honda, the people there, the salespeople there were very trustworthy, and I really liked them. They weren't scammers. They told it like it is. There was no negotiation. They just told you the price, and that was it. And there's like, look, we tell you the price. There's no negotiation up or down. Take it or leave it. And I loved that. And the last time we were there, me and my wife, and boy, did they pull out all the stupid tricks. I know the tricks. My wife doesn't know the tricks, unfortunately. And so I left to do something, probably be here with y'all and work. And she was still at the dealership. And they sold her on that total BS package where you have the protective coating that's like $700 or something. And they talked her into it. And she was like, yeah, I don't, they really made it seem convincing. I'm like, it's such a scam. And so I actually called him. I was just like, you lowlifes, because it wasn't just that. It was just to let you know, this is a very long Yelp review. I might have even left a Yelp review, but in their newspaper, they advertised a car for an exact price. And it said like, no negotiation. It is this price. So we go in and we're like, okay, we would like that car for that price. And boy, did they play all the games. It was 3 hours of games. Oh, okay, let me look into that. They let you sort of sit there and cool off for 45 minutes. Oh, you know what? Well, we have this other deal, that whole thing. You're like, well, what about well, that deal pertains to this, and there's, that doesn't include, and we look, but it says, that says there's no exceptions. It says this deal, And anyway, so now I'm never going back to that dealership because they were shady last time, And there's this other Honda dealership, which I'll say, Honda of Seattle, which is South Seattle. They're not fantastic in this direction, but they're better in my anecdotal experience. So anyway, point is that with Ed, he's coming at, he said, you're a lesbian, you cheated on me. And she's like, I'm not a lesbian. Da, da, da. And then he comes at it from a different angle. Let's rewatch that.
I cut out every single one of my friends to be with you, including my mom and my daughter.
Don't put that on me.
Well,
right. So just comment on that is what it sounds like is he's saying, I'm trying to get rid of your friends and my friends got rid of me, because my friends and my family rejected me. That gives me license to get rid of all your friends because I don't like their influence or something. I don't know. Okay, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.